The hum of the Glimmerfall's engines was a familiar lullaby to Commander Aris Thorne, a human xenolinguist whose mind found solace in the intricate dance of alien syntax. He traced the delicate lines of a holographic star map, the vibrant tapestry of known space sprawling before him. Humanity, a relative newcomer to the galactic stage, had carved out its niche through persistence and an almost reckless curiosity. Aris, currently navigating the tranquil emptiness of the rimward expanse, embodied both. Their mission, ostensibly one of deep space research, often veered into the unexpected. Today was no exception. "Commander, we're picking up a distress signal." Ensign Lena Sorokin's voice cut through the ship's ambient murmur. "Originating from the Viridia Prime system. High-priority distress, Verosian markings." Aris leaned closer to the map. Viridia Prime, an archaeologically protected system, teeming with the enigmatic ruins of a precursor civilization, strictly off-limits to younger species like humans. The Verosians, a proud insular race whose empire spanned dozens of star systems, rarely ventured into such protected zones, let alone broadcasted distress. "Patch it through, Lena," Aris ordered, a ripple of unease stirring within him. "And pull up all available intel on Viridia Prime. Anything on Verosian movements in this sector." The distress signal, once amplified, was a clipped, static-laced message in high Verosian, riddled with technical jargon. Aris's mind translated almost instinctively. Severe system failure, ancient artifact, power fluctuations, requesting immediate assistance. He recognized the voice. Captain Xylos, commander of the ironclad Ascendancy, one of the Verosian dreadnoughts. A ship known for its formidable armament and its captain for his unyielding arrogance. Aris had crossed paths with Xylos during a tense diplomatic summit, a memory he'd rather forget. As the Glimmerfall closed the distance, a colossal silhouette emerged from the star-dusted void. The ironclad Ascendancy, once a symbol of Verosian might, now floated adrift, its engines, dark-scarred hull bleeding faint energy trails. Nearby, dwarfing even the dreadnought, hung the source of the distress. A massive, obsidian black orbital station, ancient beyond measure, radiating an odd, pulsating energy signature. This was no ruin. It was intact, pristine, and humming with an inscrutable power. "Sensors are going wild, Commander," Lena reported, her voice hushed. "That station, it's unlike anything in our databases. The energy readings are off the charts, but stable, almost rhythmic." Aris gazed at the inert behemoth, a shiver running down his spine. It pulsed with a silent question, an echo from a time before time. "Hail the ironclad Ascendancy. Open a diplomatic channel. Let's see what Captain Xylos has to say for himself." The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing Captain Xylos. His scaled face, usually a mask of imperious confidence, was etched with frustration and a hint of desperation. Yet his gaze held a flicker of disdain as he recognized Aris. "Commander Thorne," Xylos rasped, his voice a gravelly rumble. "I wasn't aware your research vessel operated so far from the confines of your sector. This is a Verosian matter. Your assistance is not required." Aris kept his voice level, professional. "Captain Xylos, your distress beacon was broadcast on an open channel, indicating a high-priority emergency. As a signatory to the Interstellar Aid Compact, the Glimmerfall is obligated to respond. My medical and engineering teams are ready to assist. And regarding the anomaly," Aris gestured to the ancient station, "our preliminary scans indicate it may be the source of your vessel's disablement." Xylos's eye ridge twitched. "The anomaly is of no concern to you. It is Verosian property now. We were merely attempting to access its internal systems when it malfunctioned." He omitted the word, forcefully, but Aris heard it in the tremor of his voice. "We require technical assistance to restore our drives, nothing more." Aris suppressed a sigh. The Verosian pride was legendary, and their disdain for humanity, whom they considered upstarts, often bordered on irrational. Understood, Captain. We'll send a boarding party to assess your systems and render aid. In the meantime, I strongly advise against any further attempts to interact with the ancient station. Its energy signature suggests a level of technology far beyond anything we've encountered. Xylos scoffed, a deep rumbling sound. Your advice is noted, Commander. Now send your technicians. The holoscreen cut out abruptly, leaving Aris to stare at the blank space where Xylos's arrogant face had been. Well, that was pleasant. Jessa Rylos, the Glimmerfall's chief xenotech, quipped from her station. Her fingers danced across her console, already pulling up schematics of the ironclad ascendancy. He almost sounded grateful. Almost. Aris turned. To her, a thoughtful frown on his face. Jessa, prep a team. Standard aid protocols, but I want you to focus on any energy fluctuations or residual signatures that might point to what disabled them. And Lena, keep a close watch on that station. Log every energy spike, every anomaly. Something tells me this isn't just about a disabled dreadnought. As the Glimmerfall shuttle prepared for launch, Aris looked out at the silent, enigmatic station, a colossal, unyielding sentinel in the void. It hummed with a quiet power, an ancient song that only the universe could truly hear. And for the first time, Aris felt a strange sense of anticipation, a feeling that humanity was on the precipice of something far greater than a mere rescue mission. The interior of the ironclad ascendancy was a testament to Varosian pragmatism, stark, functional, and devoid of non-essential adornment. Emergency lighting cast long, flickering shadows, and the air hung heavy with the metallic tang of burnt circuits. Commander Aris Thorne, accompanied by Jessa Rylos and a small team of engineers and medics, navigated the damaged corridors, the groans of stressed bulkheads echoing their progress. Captain Xylos met them in the Ascendancy's bridge, his usual military bearing marred by the grim reality of his crippled vessel. He gestured curtly to the damaged primary conduit leading to their main reactor. Our power conduits were overloaded. A surge from the ancient station. We require your engineers to repair the primary feeds. Understood, Captain, Aris replied, his gaze sweeping over the console readouts, many of them dark. Jessa, prioritize the primary conduits. Ensure system integrity before any power rerouting. While the engineers began their painstaking work, Jessa, ever the investigator, veered towards the auxiliary diagnostic consoles, her tablet already linked to the Ascendancy's internal network. Permission to run some diagnostics, Captain? Deeper understanding of the surge might prevent future incidents. Xylos grunted. As long as it expedites repairs. He clearly viewed it as a nuisance, a human curiosity delaying the inevitable. Jessa's fingers flew across the Varosian interface, her universal translator sifting through alien error codes. Aris, meanwhile, approached a large, hollow display, projecting a faint, distorted image of the ancient orbital station. Its smooth, dark surface seemed to absorb the light, revealing no seams or access points. You attempted to force an entry, didn't you, Captain? Aris asked, his voice low. Xylos's scaled neck bristled. The station is a derelict, an ancient relic. We merely sought to understand its function. Its defenses are unexpectedly robust. He paused, a flicker of something akin to awe in his eyes. It was as if it knew our intent. The energy pulse was precisely targeted, disabling only our access attempts and the associated systems. Jessa suddenly let out a sharp gasp. Commander, look at this. Her voice crackled with excitement. She gestured to her tablet, which now displayed a shimmering cascade of unfamiliar characters. I'm picking up residual data streams. Faint, fragmented, but definitely originating from the station. The Varosians must have briefly breached a data buffer before the pulse hit. Aris hurried to her side, his linguistic instincts tingling. The characters were alien, yet there was a curious underlying structure, an almost mathematical elegance that hinted at complex meaning. Any translation, Jessa? Not yet. It's a new language. Unlike any known galactic standard. But the patterns, they're incredibly intricate, almost like a recursive fractal. I've initiated a deep scan linguistic parse, cross-referencing with every known ancient language and mathematical construct. She paused, her brow furrowed in concentration. And the energy signature associated with this data, it's not a destructive signature. It's more like a repulsion, like the station was pushing them away, not annihilating them. While the human engineers worked methodically on the Ascendancy's power conduits, the Verosian crew watched with a mix of suspicion and grudging respect. Their own attempts to repair the damage had been clumsy, relying on brute force solutions. The humans, by contrast, were meticulous, their every movement precise and purposeful. Hours bled into a tense day. Jessa remained hunched over her tablet, her focus absolute. Aris found himself drawn back to the hollow display of the ancient station, its silent presence dominating the sector. He thought about Xylos's comment. It was as if it knew our intent. What kind of technology could discern intent? Suddenly, Jessa let out a triumphant cry. I've got something. A partial translation. It's not a simple data log, Commander, it's a legal code, or a set of principles. It keeps repeating phrases like balance of intent, harmonious integration, and stewardship of the void. Aris felt a jolt. A legal code? From a pre-galactic civilization? That's unprecedented. Xylos, overhearing, scoffed. Ancient laws of a long-dead species? What use are they to us? We sought technological advancement, not philosophical musings. His disdain for anything not immediately practical was palpable. Aris ignored him, his gaze fixed on the shimmering text on Jessa's tablet. Keep digging, Jessa. This isn't just about the Verosians' blunder. If this station is a repository of ancient laws, there's a reason it reacted the way it did. He felt a growing conviction that the ironclad Ascendancy's misfortune was more than a mere accident. It was a judgment. And humanity, with its unique blend of curiosity and ethical reasoning, might just be the only species capable of understanding it. Jessa's breakthrough reverberated through the small human team. While the ironclad Ascendancy's basic systems sputtered back to life, allowing the Verosians some control, the mystery of the ancient station deepened. It's definitely a code of conduct, Commander, Jessa explained, her voice buzzing with intellectual excitement as she projected the fragmented translations onto a larger screen. The architects, as they called themselves, weren't just engineers, they were ethicists. Their technology seems to be intrinsically linked to their philosophical principles. This edict I've been focusing on, it's about the preservation of galactic equilibrium. It defines what constitutes a violation of that equilibrium, often in terms of intent rather than just action. Captain Xylos, leaning against a bulkhead, crossed his powerful arms. A dead race's moral ramblings, fascinating human, but entirely irrelevant to the power this station clearly possesses. We were on the verge of unlocking it when it discharged. Captain, Aris said, his voice firm. What if the discharge was a part of its moral ramblings? What if the station isn't meant to be unlocked through force, but accessed through adherence to these principles? Xylos snorted. You speak of fables, Commander. Technology is power, nothing more. As if to defy his dismissive words, a low, resonant thrum emanated from the ancient station. On the Glimmerfall's long-range sensors, Lena's voice crackled through. Commander, the station's energy readings are spiking, not in a destructive way, but organized. And something's forming on its surface. Aris and Jessa rushed to the main view screen. Wisps of dark energy coalesced around the obsidian surface of the ancient station, resolving into colossal geometric constructs. They were not ships nor weapons, but silent, angular entities, each radiating a faint, almost imperceptible light. Sentinels, Aris thought, the word echoing in his mind. They're not attacking, Lena reported, her voice hushed with awe. They're occupying space, like a defensive array but without any offensive signatures. They're reacting to the edict. Commander, Jessa exclaimed, pointing at her tablet. The preservation of galactic equilibrium protocol has fully activated. It's reacting to the perceived imbalance caused by the Varosians' attempt to forcefully seize control. The Sentinels began to slowly rotate, their movements deliberate, almost graceful. They weren't moving towards the ironclad ascendancy, but rather positioning themselves around the ancient station, creating an invisible, impenetrable barrier. "They are forming a blockade," Xylos roared, his scaled face contorted in a snarl. "Disarm them, human. Your analysis is irrelevant. They are threatening Varosian property." "They are not attacking, Captain," Aris countered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "They are defending. And based on what Jessa has translated, they are doing so based on the Architect's forgotten laws. They see your attempt to seize the station as a violation of galactic equilibrium." He turned to the Varosian captain, his gaze unwavering. "Captain, the Architects weren't just technologically advanced. They were, it appears, ethically programmed. Their creations react not just to physical input, but to the intent behind it. Your aggressive intent, your desire to take the station's power is precisely what has activated these Sentinels. They are not weapons, but judges." Xylos stared at him, his expression a mixture of disbelief and incomprehension. The concept of technology imbued with moral judgment was clearly beyond his rigid, pragmatic worldview. "Impossible. Technology has no morality. This is a defensive system, nothing more. A highly advanced one, yes, but still a system to be overcome." "That's where you're wrong, Captain," Aris said, a strange certainty settling within him. "And it's why humanity might be uniquely positioned to understand this. We've always wrestled with the ethics of our own creations, the unintended consequences. Perhaps the Architects faced similar dilemmas, and this was their solution. Technology, bound by an ethical framework, designed to maintain peace through deterrence rather than destruction." As the Sentinels continued their slow, deliberate formation, a faint rhythmic pulse began to emanate from the ancient station, a low-frequency hum that vibrated through the very fabric of the ironclad ascendancy. It was a profound, silent declaration. The Architect's forgotten oath had been activated, and humanity, by virtue of its curiosity and its often underestimated capacity for ethical reasoning, was caught squarely in its reawakening. The stakes, Aris knew, had just become galactic. The low-frequency pulse emanating from the reactivated Architect station wasn't confined to the Viridia Prime system. It spread outward, a silent, resonant hum that pierced through the void, reaching far-flung sensors across the galaxy. It was a signal of awakening, a call that echoed through the deep space networks of the elder species. On the bridge of the Glimmerfall, Lena's console flared with new alerts. "Commander, we're receiving multiple long-range scans. The Silix Collective is redirecting a scout fleet from the Iridian sector. And the Gorvash hegemony, they've scrambled a battle group from their outer rim territories. Both are on a direct course for Viridia Prime." Aris's jaw tightened. The Silix were a vast mercantile empire, driven by profit and influence, their curiosity often overshadowed by avarice. The Gorvash, on the other hand, were a militaristic power, quick to interpret any unknown anomaly as a threat requiring swift, decisive action. Both would see the activated Architect station as either a resource to be exploited or a danger to be neutralized. Captain Xylos, whose own comms were undoubtedly ablaze with similar reports, stalked towards Aris, his scaled face contorted in fury. "This is your doing, human. Your meddling, your ridiculous theories about ethical programming have alerted the entire galaxy. You must disable these Sentinels at once, before the Silix and Gorvash arrive and declare war over this sector." Aris met Xylos's furious gaze, his own resolve hardening. "Captain, the Sentinels were activated by your own aggressive intent, and disabling them now blindly, without understanding their full purpose, would be reckless beyond measure. This station is not a weapon to be disarmed, but a repository of ancient knowledge, and it clearly has a system for protecting that knowledge. Knowledge that threatens galactic stability," Xylos bellowed, his voice vibrating with frustration. "The Silix will demand access, the Gorvash will deploy their entire fleet. Do you understand the implications, Commander? A galactic war could ignite over this. Your human ethics mean nothing against the pragmatism of empires." And what of the ethics of empires, Captain? Aris shot back, his voice rising, cutting through Xylos's bluster. Is it always about seizing power, controlling resources? What if the Architect's forgotten oath is precisely what the galaxy needs right now? A reminder that there are principles beyond conquest and profit? Jessa, still monitoring the station's transmissions, chimed in, her voice urgent. Commander, the pulse isn't just a signal. It's radiating data, fragmented, like before, but with a different emphasis. It's a recall sequence, a reattachment protocol. It's calling other dormant Architect stations online, presumably across the galaxy, in response to what it perceives as significant galactic imbalance or threats to universal stewardship. The revelation hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just a station activating. It was the beginning of a network. This is catastrophic, Xylos cried, clenching his fists. They will see this as an act of aggression, a new galactic power asserting itself. Or, Aris said, a glint of defiance in his eyes, they will see it as a reawakening. And if that reawakening is built on the Architect's principles, then perhaps the galaxy will be better for it. I will not compromise the integrity of this ancient system simply to appease the fears of empires, Captain. We will stand by our principles even if we stand alone. He turned to his crew, his voice strong and clear. Lena, continue monitoring all incoming fleets. Jessa, focus on that reattachment protocol. If these stations are activating, we need to understand why and how, and prepare our broadcast array. We're going to try and communicate with those approaching fleets. We're going to tell them exactly what's happening here. Xylos stared at him, a complex mix of incredulity and grudging respect in his reptilian eyes. He had expected compliance, or at least a cautious retreat. Instead, the young human had taken a stand, prioritizing an abstract ideal over the looming threat of interspecies conflict. It was baffling, infuriating, and in a strange way undeniably courageous. The Veracians, in their rigid adherence to power and dominance, had never fully grasped the subtle strength of humanity's quiet, principled conviction. They were about to learn. The void shimmered with the approaching star fleets, pinpricks of light resolving into the distinctive profiles of Silic's collective long-haul vessels and Gorvash hegemony frigates. Tension on the Glimmerfall's bridge was a palpable thing, a taut wire stretched to its breaking point. Silic's fleet is holding at jump point Alpha, Commander, Lena reported, her voice tight. Gorvash are pushing closer, but the Sentinels' energy fields are causing minor system perturbations, nothing damaging but enough to make them slow down. Aris nodded. Good. It proves they're not weapons, they're deterrents. He turned to Jessa, who was practically vibrating with new data. Commander, I've got it, Jessa exclaimed, pushing a holographic projection forward. It was a complex flowchart, ancient symbols interwoven with translated phrases. The reattachment protocol, the recall pulse. It's triggered by what the Architects called the Great Disharmony. It's not just about an aggressive act, but a systemic failure to uphold certain universal principles. And the forgotten oath. It states that the Sentinels and the knowledge they guard will remain dormant until a species demonstrates genuine stewardship and ethical understanding of the galaxy. Not just technological prowess, but a moral right to wield such power. Aris felt a surge of understanding. So the Veracians attempting to seize the station, to extract its power without understanding its purpose, was precisely the trigger. It registered as a failure of that stewardship, a sign of the Great Disharmony. Exactly, Jessa confirmed. The Sentinels aren't waking up because of a threat to themselves. They're waking up because the galaxy, in the Architect's estimation, has lost its way, and they're looking for a species capable of understanding the true meaning of their legacy. Captain Xylos, who had been listening with a mixture of disbelief and growing unease, suddenly paled. You mean our actions, our attempts to dominate this station, were seen as a violation of their ancient tenets? And that is why they activated and called to others? It seems so, Captain, Aris replied, a grim satisfaction in his voice. Your pragmatic approach, your belief that technology is merely a tool to be wielded, is directly at odds with the Architect's philosophy. Commander, Incoming hail from the Silic's lead vessel, the Prophet's Pursuit, Lena announced. And simultaneously, from the Gorvash flagship, the Iron Talon, Aris took a deep breath. This was it. The moment of truth. Open a wideband, galaxy-wide broadcast. Patch them all in, every species within range, let them hear. He stepped before the holoscreen, the combined images of the Silic's ambassador, a multi-limbed creature named Xylor, and the Gorvash High Commander, a stern, armored figure known as Raxin, flickering into view. This is Commander Aris Thorne of the human research vessel Glimmerfall, Aris began, his voice clear and resonant, carrying across the vastness of space. We have been investigating the recent activation of the ancient Architect station in the Viridia Prime system, and we have made a profound discovery. This station and others like it now awakening across the galaxy are not weapons. They are not threats. They are custodians of a forgotten oath. He paused, letting the words sink in. The Architects, a civilization of immense wisdom, did not merely build technology. They integrated it with a deep ethical framework. Their stations are designed to protect galactic equilibrium, to respond to the great disharmony that arises when species prioritize brute force and conquest over stewardship and understanding. Sealer's voice, a series of rapid clicks and whirs, cut through the broadcast. Commander Thorne, your assertions are baseless. This ethical technology is an unknown variable. The Sentinels are disrupting trade lanes. We demand access to these stations for analysis and potential resource extraction. Raxin, the Gorvash High Commander, rumbled. And we demand to know if this is a new weapon, human. Your species is young, unproven. We will not tolerate destabilization of the established order. Their disruption is a non-lethal deterrent. Commander Raxin, Aris countered, his voice unwavering. They are preventing aggressive approaches. And Ambassador Xylor, their purpose is not resource extraction. It is the reintroduction of knowledge. Knowledge that has been lost because we, as a galactic community, have forgotten the true meaning of stewardship. He looked directly into the flickering images of the alien leaders. Captain Xylos and the Varosian ironclad ascendancy attempted to force entry into this station. Their intent to seize its power was perceived by the Sentinels as a violation of the Architect's oath. It was this act and this act alone that triggered the station's full activation and the recall protocol for other dormant stations. A ripple of shock went through the comms. Xylos on the ironclad ascendancy winced, his face flushing with a rare shame. Humanity, Aris continued, his voice resonating with conviction, has, through its own unique historical path, retained a certain understanding of these principles. We see the value in wisdom over pure power. We believe that true advancement comes not from dominating the universe, but from understanding our place within it. We understand the Architect's language of ethics. We have begun to unravel their forgotten oath, and we are here to offer that understanding, not to command or conquer. We believe the Architects have returned, not to destroy, but to remind us of a better way forward. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant hum of the Sentinels and the approaching fleets. Aris had laid humanity's cards on the table, challenging the very foundations of galactic power dynamics. The gamble was immense, but he knew, deep in his core, that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons, but in its unexpected capacity for truth, empathy, and a quiet, unyielding belief in a better path. The galactic leaders' initial responses to Aris's broadcast were a mixture of outrage and calculated skepticism. The Silics, always sniffing out opportunity, tempered their aggression with a desire to understand the potential market value of ethical technology. The Gorvash, ever cautious, were intrigued by the Sentinels' non-lethal but absolute deterrence. They sent small diplomatic missions, wary shuttles approaching the Glimmerfall, which Aris had declared a neutral zone. Ambassador Xylor, his multiple limbs twitching with barely contained impatience, and Commander Raxin, his armored form radiating an aura of barely controlled power, faced Aris across a diplomatic holotable aboard the Glimmerfall. Captain Xylos, still smarting from the public revelation of his blunder, observed from a corner, a silent, brooding presence. Commander Thorne, Siler articulated, his clicks and whirs sharper than usual. Your claims are audacious. This ethical programming you speak of. How does one ethically integrate a hyper-advanced power source? Our profit models demand tangible output, not philosophical debates. And these sentinels are not weapons, Raxon rumbled, his voice low and guttural. Yet they have demonstrated an uncanny ability to prevent our approach. Explain this stewardship, human. What proof do you offer that these ancient entities are not simply a new form of galactic control? Aris leaned forward, his gaze steady. The Architect's oath is not about control, Commander Raxon, but about balance. They believe that unchecked power, devoid of ethical consideration, leads to disharmony. Their technology is designed to prevent such imbalance. Jessa, if you please. Jessa Rylos, ever calm and precise, stepped forward. We have deciphered specific protocols from the Architect's data. They outline a method of interaction based on offering knowledge, asking for guidance, and demonstrating a peaceful, curious intent, rather than demanding access or asserting dominance. Offering what, precisely? Siler interjected, his eyes narrowing. Tributes? Indoctrination? No, Aris countered. Understanding, empathy, a willingness to learn, not to seize. The Architect's technology doesn't demand submission. It demands a demonstration of worthy intent. He then addressed his crew. Jessa, initiate the intercalation protocol, on my command. The protocol, painstakingly deciphered by Jessa from the fragmented Architect data, was a complex sequence of energy modulations, resonant frequencies, and almost meditative thought patterns. It was, in essence, a digital prayer, a technological appeal to the Sentinel's ethical core. We will demonstrate the protocol now, Aris announced, addressing the alien leaders. On the Glimmerfall's external view screen, outside the ship, the colossal sentinels remained inert, their silent obsidian forms dominating the starscape. Jessa began the sequence. A soft, iridescent glow pulsed from the Glimmerfall's forward sensors, a gentle, non-aggressive emission. It wasn't a beam, but a diffused, harmonious wave of energy. As the Glimmerfall's subtle emissions washed over the nearest sentinel, something extraordinary happened. The sentinel, which had been perfectly still, began to stir. Not with aggressive movement, but with a slow, deliberate rotation. Then, from its very surface, holographic projections began to form, shimmering into existence like liquid light. They were schematics, not of weapons nor of grand starships, but of intricate energy production systems that drew power from quantum fluctuations with zero waste. Then came designs for terraforming technologies that healed damaged planets, purifying atmospheres and revitalizing ecosystems. Finally, images of vast interconnected knowledge networks designed for universal collaboration and shared understanding. These are not weapons of war, Aris stated, his voice hushed with awe, even as he explained to the stunned alien representatives. These are the Architect's true legacy, technologies for sustainable advancement, for galactic healing, for unifying knowledge. The Silic's ambassador Xylor was speechless, his multi-limbed form uncharacteristically still. Commander Raxon's hardened features softened with a flicker of something akin to wonder. This was not conquest, not power for its own sake. This was something entirely different. The Sentinels are not a threat, Aris concluded, his gaze sweeping over the now revealed holographic marvels. They are a test of galactic intent. The Verosians failed it when they sought to conquer. We, humanity, through our willingness to understand, to respect, and to approach with peaceful intent, have passed. And in doing so, we have unlocked the Architect's true promise. The implications were staggering. The galaxy had been on the brink of war over a perceived threat, only to discover that the threat was in fact a benevolent reawakening, triggered by their own flawed approach. Humanity, the junior species the upstarts, had, through their unique perspective and ethical framework, become the unexpected key to unlocking a future beyond anything the elder races had ever conceived. The true test, however, was just beginning. Could the galaxy truly learn from a forgotten oath, delivered by the most unlikely of messengers? The holographic projections from the Architect Station persisted, broadcasting their intricate schematics and ethical protocols not just to the Glimmerfall but now across the entire sector. Other dormant stations, scattered across the galaxy which had received the initial recall pulse, slowly began to flicker to life, echoing the same message. A network of ancient wisdom was awakening. Ambassador Xylor and Commander Raxon remained. Aboard the Glimmerfall, their previous skepticism replaced by a profound, almost reverent silence. Captain Xylo, still present, stood in the corner, his usual arrogance replaced by a quiet, uncharacteristic humility. "This is unprecedented," Xyler finally clicked, his vocalizations slower, more thoughtful. "A technology not driven by profit or conquest, but by ethical adherence. The Architect's Oath is not a demand for servitude, but a blueprint for sustainable existence." Raxon nodded, a rare gesture of agreement from the Gorvash High Commander. "Our hegemony has always valued strength. But this is a different kind of strength, a strength of wisdom, of foresight. We misinterpreted its purpose. We would have destroyed it, believing it a threat, and lost this invaluable knowledge." Aris looked at them, a sense of profound hope stirring within him. The architects believed that technological advancement without ethical grounding inevitably leads to decay. They didn't impose their will. They merely created a system that would activate when the galaxy was in danger of losing its way. Humanity, by pure chance of our historical development, our constant internal struggle with the morality of our own creations, happened to possess the framework to understand their message. Suddenly, Captain Xylo stepped forward, his scaled hide flushing a deep crimson, a rare sign of Veracian embarrassment. "Commander Thorne," he began, his voice gravelly, I owe you an apology. My arrogance, my species' unyielding belief in power through force nearly condemned us all. You and your crew, you saw something we were blind to. You approached with curiosity, not aggression. Your human ethics, they are not a weakness." It was a staggering admission from a Veracian. Aris simply nodded, a small, genuine smile gracing his lips. "The path forward won't be easy, Captain. Integrating this knowledge, understanding the full implications of the Architect's Oath will require a monumental shift in galactic thinking, and it would. The Silix Collective would need to reevaluate their entire economic model, which currently prioritized exploitation. The Gorvash hegemony would have to redefine their concept of security, moving from military might to sustainable peace. But the seed had been planted. In the ensuing days, the Glimmerfall became a hub of galactic diplomacy and scientific inquiry. Human linguists worked tirelessly with alien counterparts to disseminate the Architect's knowledge. Engineers from every species pored over the energy schematics, their minds grappling with the concept of technology that was inherently good, rather than merely powerful. The reactivated Architect stations across the galaxy, now recognized as beacons of ancient wisdom rather than threats, began to form a nascent network. They didn't command, they offered. They didn't dictate, they guided. A new galactic council was proposed, not one based on military might or economic leverage, but on the principles of stewardship and shared understanding as outlined in the Architect's Oath. Humanity, once dismissed as a peripheral, impetuous species, found itself in a prominent advisory role, an unexpected bridge to a forgotten past. Aris Thorne stood on the Glimmerfall's observation deck, gazing at the silent, shimmering Architect Station. It no longer felt inert, but alive, a heart beating a forgotten rhythm for a galaxy finally ready to listen. Jessa joined him, a thoughtful expression on her face. "It's just the beginning, isn't it, Commander?" she mused. "Learning how to truly live by these principles. It's a huge undertaking." "It is," Aris agreed, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over him. "But for the first time, Jessa, I think the galaxy has a true path to balance. And it was found because a young, underestimated species dared to look beyond the immediate, to consider the ethical, to simply understand." Humanity, it seems, has become the unexpected guardians of the new dawn. The stars, once a vast, indifferent canvas, now shimmered with the faint, resonant hum of awakening, a symphony of forgotten oaths finally remembered. Humanity, the keepers of that lost knowledge, had not just averted a crisis. They had ushered in an era of profound, hopeful change.